Hey there, this is David Blattner, the president of CreativePro Network, and I'm here with Sean Springer from 3M. And welcome, Sean. It is great to have a conversation with you.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Uh, so we last talked at Creative Pro Week, where 3M was, you and some other folks from 3M were showing the VAS system, the VAS system. And honestly, what that stands for has already gone out of my head.
Visual attention software.
Visual attention software. And this is really cool software, and I really want everybody to try this. The more I think about it, the more I use it myself, the more I think every designer on the planet needs to at least experience it, because it gives us some insight into what's really going on, how our designs are really being seen. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute, but before we get to that, I want to ask you about yourself a little bit.
Sure.
You work for 3M, and you're are you in the Minneapolis area?
I am. Yep. I'm actually calling in from Minneapolis in my bedroom today, but I work in the St. Paul Center at 3M.
Okay.
For 3M. Yep.
And Minneapolis and St. Paul are like right across the river from each other, right?
Correct.
So it's very close.
Yep.
It's the area, the Twin Cities
Twin
area.
Cities.
And so, and how did you get involved with this? And why is 3M? This is the bigger question. Maybe we should start with that. The big question is, why is 3M, which is making my Post-it notes, involved in creating design software? Where the heck did that come from?
Yeah, this is a question we get somewhat commonly, and the answer is longer and maybe a little stranger than you might think. So VAS is actually built on over 40 years of research, which confuses people when we're talking about artificial intelligence software, because artificial intelligence as a field has not really existed for 40 years, right?
Right.
However, 3M makes products for roads. One of our core businesses in our transportation safety division and personal safety division is road signs, safety vests, markers on roads.
Okay.
All these things that are retroreflective, so they reflect all of the light from your headlights that shines on them back on you.
Yeah.
So these products, to perform well, absolutely need to be noticed at first glance. And so we hired neuroscientists, and by we, I mean, not me, but 3M, hired neuroscientists, 40 years ago to start understanding human vision. And for a long time, the focus was just on making these brighter and brighter and brighter. But eventually the researchers noticed diminishing returns. If making things brighter alone didn't make them more visible, what did? And that's the question that launched the exploration into artificial intelligence and actually modeling the human brain, the first glance phase of the human brain. So this was developed as an internal tool for us to use to help make roads safer. But eventually we realized that designers and marketers are kind of in the same boat. These are people who really want to know what's going to get noticed at first glance.
Yes.
And so this internal tool has been tweaked, expanded, refined, adjusted for different viewing conditions, put a much better UI on it. And now we're releasing it externally as VAS.
That is absolutely fascinating. Because it is true that in design, the core technique, the whole point of design in some ways is to draw the human eye to something on the page. And typically it's more than one thing on the page, but you want to draw it to this, then look over here, and then get the information down here. So you're leading someone through a journey, through a story of experiencing a design. And, we each have our own idea of what that experience is going to be, how we're leading someone through it. And I have found so many times that I'll design something and I'll hand it off to someone else, and they're like, well, why did you do this? My eye goes right to this. I'm like, no, your eye is supposed to go to this, not that. For my eye goes to this. So I realized that it's very, we can't do this desk marketing, right? We can't do this desk design. Like, it works for me, so it's good. It must be good for everybody. And in the past, it's always been, well, I'll just hand it around to a few people. What you've done is you've extrapolated that out and built a system so that it's kind of a normalized response. What would the normal human how would the normal human respond visually to a design? Is that right?
Correct. Yep. So what VAS does is it actually models the subconscious process in your brain that happens in those first few seconds of looking at something. So there's really kind of two parts to human vision. There's pre-conscious vision, or first glance vision is what we like to call it.
Okay.
And then later on, there's kind of like conscious viewing. So reading, understanding all of these higher functioning things that designers are experts in designing for all kind of happen in this later stage, this second stage.
Okay.
And what VAS is doing is actually modeling the pre-conscious process. So it models the same way that your brain works, based off kind of 5 building blocks of human vision, these 5 visual elements. And VAS will actually break those 5 elements down for you, so you understand not only what's getting attention, but why the attention's going where it is. Again, though, VAS is confined to those first few seconds, that subconscious viewing phase, right when you first look at something. So we see VAS as a really good tool for a designer because it helps with the part that's hard for humans. By definition, it's tough to consciously understand something that happens subconsciously, right? So we give you a window into that subconscious selection process so you can tweak and edit your designs and make sure that your visual hierarchy is actually aligned to these intrinsic, very foundational building blocks of human vision.
Well, the other piece that what you're saying is fascinating to me because if this is showing how people are going to respond in those first moments, most of us who are designing something, we've been with it for a while. There's no way for us to have a truly fresh look at something because we've been looking at it, we've been making it. So it sounds like this is actually a great example of this is literally not something I can do myself. I need to have somebody else's help with.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. The closest thing that could replicate this is like an eye tracking study, but eye tracking studies take time and are expensive, where VAS is a tool that you can use really iteratively. You can run VAS analyses over and over again. You can compare different reports to see how minor tweaks or changes will affect it. Stuff like that would be tough to do with conventional eye tracking.
It absolutely, and the reports are great. I have to say, almost a little overwhelming for me because you're trying to provide people with so much information. Here's what people are going to be seeing. But it's nice the way it's very visual. I love the very visual reports. And by the way, I need to say for people who are watching this, first of all, it's free for you to try this. This is there's no reason you shouldn't go try this not right now. Wait till after this, then go try this out. You go to VAS.3m.com, right?
Correct.
And you can get 10 free trials of this right away. Can we give those extra 5 for Creative Pro listeners? I hope we can.
And I assume so, but yes.
What is that code?
I think it's all caps Creative Pro and then the number 5.
I think you're right.
I'll follow up after this, and if you can post that under the video,
we're gonna make sure that's posted, and we'll put it in the notes so everyone can get their extra 5 credits. So everyone here can just try this out, and very quickly. It's amazing how fast it is. I mean, you upload an image. I'm as an InDesign user. I should point out, as an InDesign user, there's no direct link from InDesign to VAS yet. Is that correct?
Correct. So we have a web app which you can use and download. So you can upload, copy paste, drag files in there, as well as plugins for Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and XD. So those are the 3 that we have plugins for at the moment. But we're still working on this, and there may be additional tools or plugins coming out in the future.
So if you're using Illustrator or Photoshop, you can download the plugin, and right from within the app, you can just upload directly to VAS, right? And you can get
Yep. So you can fire VAS through Photoshop, so you don't even need to leave your tool.
That's awesome.
It can take a little bit longer. So we say 7 seconds for our web app, up to maybe about 30 seconds for the plugins. It just takes longer for Adobe servers to communicate with ours, pretty much. But even so, it's still a pretty quick analysis.
It's really quick. Yeah. So what I've been doing in InDesign is just exporting a JPEG or a PNG. Go to my web browser and upload the image, and like you said, it's like 7 seconds, and boom, you get all this feedback. You can download a multi-page PDF with a heat map, with a like what are people looking at, what's the likelihood that people are going to be looking at at a particular place. It's very impressive.
Yep. So we have three basic reports: heat map, hotspots, and gaze sequence,
Gaze sequence.
which all kind of give you a general idea of what people are looking at.
Yeah.
As an advanced feature, you can also mark areas of interest, which will tell you the exact probability that area is to be viewed during that subconscious viewing period. So it'll let you know exactly what attention is going to kind of your key, top elements of your visual hierarchy.
And the areas of interest there's like a generalized areas of interest or a facial recognition, I believe. I didn't quite understand the difference.
For sure. Yeah. So you can either mark an area of interest as something you want to get more detailed information about, and that'll provide you, that score for that area, as well as in the visual elements pane, which is probably our most complex pane, a breakdown of why the attention is going to that area, based off those kind of building blocks of vision. You can also mark something as a face. So marking something as a face won't give you any more detailed information about the attention going to the face, but it lets VAS know that a face is there. So VAS will automatically recognize faces, but for example, I recently analyzed a face with a guy wearing sunglasses, and it would sometimes recognize it and sometimes not. So you can also manually mark a face to let VAS know that there's a face there if it didn't, pull it out for you. And the reason we mark faces is that human beings are biologically programmed to recognize and respond to other human faces.
Yeah.
So, along with things like edges, contrast, luminance, brightness contrast, or color contrast, faces are one of these things that we're biologically programmed to be like, I'm going to put my attention there because there's a human face there.
And I'm assuming that the software, this AI, has been built in such a way that if you have a road sign in the middle, it knows that the road sign is always the most important thing, right? I mean, no, not really.
I mean, not really. It would depend exactly on how much contrast and edges and
I
all
was
of that.
I was just thinking about its early origins,
the
origin story.
Yeah. Well, road signs are designed to pop out. So hopefully on a dark road, the road sign would be one of the first things that.
That is true. That is true. Now, I completely skipped. I got so excited about the software itself that I want to go back to you. Sean.
Sure.
So how did you get involved with this? Are you from the design side or where's your interest in here?
Honestly, neither. So I got hired at 3M about 3 years ago, coming fresh out of college. I have degrees in chemistry and material science engineering. And I was working on consumer crafting goods. Actually, I still have that job. However, as I've gotten more involved with 3M, I've really opened my eyes to artificial intelligence and how disruptive it's going to be in so many fields. And I have a lot of interest in these new digital spaces, in AI, and actually in augmented reality too, or mixed reality technologies. And when VAS came into stationery and office supplies division, I wrote a note to my tech director asking, "Hey, can I please work on this? This is really cool stuff." And I think they were happy to help me align kind of my natural passion and enthusiasm for these sort of solutions, and put me into a role like this where I can do things like this that are the highlight of my day and talk about VAS with people like you. So
I love that. I love that. I mean, it is fascinating. I have to say, it's one of those things. As soon as you try it, I love technology. Is that as soon as you try it, you're like, oh my gosh, I want to try it for this other thing. Oh, I got to try. You immediately kind of get it. And so this VAS really does that. It's very impressive. I mean, it's not like it's for everybody on the planet, but I really do believe that every designer, because it goes to the core of what design is about, I really think every designer needs to at least experience it to get a sense of start retraining our minds. I mean, I almost want to feel like it should be part of a design training process where you're like, okay, this is how you think people see, but VAS has been trained. VAS knows that people see things differently than you think. So
yeah. So 92% accuracy. So I recently helped revalidate that claim against large sets of standardized data from MIT, which are kind of actually used for this specific purpose, for evaluating exactly how accurate vision prediction is. So we're 92% accurate at that first glance phase of vision.
Now, was this trained with, like a room full of people with eye tracking devices on? And
that's a really good question. And we do have competition. Most of our competition in this space in vision prediction is trained that way, is based
Okay.
off machine learning of
Yeah.
large sets of data from eye tracking studies.
Okay.
VAS actually works differently. I think we're the only one that works differently.
Hmm.
Instead, we kind of break down those 5 building blocks of human vision, edges, intensity, red green color contrast, blue yellow color contrast, and faces. And VAS simulates each of those building blocks the way that it works in our brain,
Mm-hmm.
simulates the interactions between them, and then reports that back out. So we're working on more of a fundamental level of simulating kind of the most basic process of your visual cortex.
And do you? I mean, I've talked about designers as a general group, but are there specific design types of people that you think that should be using this?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, VAS is home in 3M. We use this internally in 3M a lot. I would say is especially kind of in packaging design, as well as like shelf sets. Making sure that your package will stand out in a category set.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really strong use case. Externally, we've seen a lot of use for like UX design. We have a case study where a minor change to a call to action button, like a click here to buy now
Yeah.
button,
Yeah.
where we increased it from about 60% to about 75% visibility in the
Wow.
pre-conscious phase, and that drove 181% more clicks to that button. So
Wow.
in web design and UX design, I think we have a home run.
Yeah.
But we see interest in VAS from everything. This spring I talked on the presentation podcast about
Mm-hmm.
VAS for slide design.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, we've had interest from some internal designers, using VAS to analyze the way that rooms are laid out. And of
Oh,
course,
interesting.
VAS for marketing too. A lot of the marketing folks
Sure.
internally at 3M love VAS as well.
And it is fascinating. One of the first things that VAS asks when you upload something is where is this going to be seen, right? So it's
Exactly.
like is
Yep.
it print? Is it a print piece or is it external, like an outside, like a billboard or something, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I talk about VAS like it's one thing, but the truth is that it's a handful of closely related algorithms,
Hmm.
and each of those algorithms are tweaked based on the viewing condition. So it doesn't really matter what it is, but more the environment that it's in, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense.
Yeah.
So, for example, there's something called center fixation bias, essentially that we're more likely to look at content that's in the middle of a screen. And this
Mm-hmm.
is present in digital environments. So anything that is on a digital basis, our eyes are more likely to look towards the middle of the screen first.
Hmm.
This center fixation bias doesn't exist nearly as strongly in like outdoor macro views or like
Mm.
print views.
Right.
So that's one example of something that the VAS algorithm is built or tweaked for to take into account, to make it as accurate as possible.
This is very, very cool. So again, I really want to emphasize everybody can go try this out right now. You get 10 free trial runs at vas.3m.com. You can get 5 additional ones if you use the code. We'll put it in the description. We'll overlay it. We'll figure out how to get that to you. We think it's CreativePro 5. And it is, yeah, CreativePro 5. Sean, thank you so much for taking the time to explain this because it's so cool when it's like a how do I say this? When worlds meet, right? It's like that 3M would be bringing together technology that was based on a completely different thing and bring it to a design world, and magic can happen. And so I'm just so glad that to be able to get that out there to the world, and people should be trying it out. I
Awesome.
think
Thank you so
people are
much,
gonna
David.
like it.
Appreciate the opportunity to sred the word. So
It's great. Thank
thank
you
you
so
for
much.
having me.
Absolutely.